take a walk on the woo-woo side with me. My name is Michelle Douglas and I am on a mission to help you to step into your power so that you can create the life you desire. Visit me at empoweredlifeprograms.com to learn more. Hello, lovelies. It's Michelle here, and we are recording episode 175 of the Empowered Life podcast. And this one's about the first step to healing and acknowledging what went wrong. It's a bit of a miserable day out here today, and I figured that I would make yet another attempt to record this particular episode. I have tried so many times to record this one, and for some reason it just wasn't flowing. And even once I had recorded it, was like, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. So here I am yet again, coming at it from a very different angle. So before I was looking at it from the perspective of, you know, in my past relationships, I was very much in my masculine, which created havoc and blah, 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 blah. And yes, that is true that I was in that state. But what was underneath all of that was around vibrational alignment. And I've been doing a few reels and things on my personal Facebook page and Instagram, and I've been talking a lot about vibrational alignment, and it underpins everything. And I'm like, well, why aren't I just talking about that? Because that's something I know a lot about. I've been studying it since the 90s. Yes, I am that old. And it's just like, well, vibrational alignment is everything. You can't have something in your life unless you're in vibrational alignment with it. So if you've just come out of a really crappy relationship, it's because at one point you were in vibrational alignment with that crappy relationship, with having that. Now that you're out of it, you're in vibrational alignment with being out of that crappy relationship. So anyway, so I want to try to simplify this as well, because I don't want this to be seen as a potential beat up of, you know, victims or anything like that. Like, I've been through abusive relationships. I've been cheated on. Like, I've had the works. And while I know that I was in vibrational alignment with those situations, I also know what I can do now, or what I have done since then, to step out of that vibrational alignment so I don't create it in my life again. Because here's the thing, we go through all these things in our lives to learn lessons and to grow and to evolve. And if we're not learning the lesson, we'll keep doing the same thing. Like, how many people do you know that will come out of say an abusive relationship or a relationship with a cheater and end up in a new relationship where the exact same thing happens? And that's usually because there were certain lessons from the first relationship that weren't yet learned, and that's nobody's fault. This isn't stuff we're taught at school. And, sometimes we've got to go through the crappy situation a few times before we go, and I can talk from experience about this, because here I was between, after my second divorce and meeting Laurie, there were these patterns going on, and I'm just like, what the heck am I doing here? And I learned a very rough lesson, and I had my heart broken a few times, not completely, but me being the logical thinker can move on from things pretty quickly. But what I did realize when I looked back at all of these patterns that were happening, they were coming up because I wasn't listening to my intuition and following through on what we call my essentials list. So I had a list of essentials and desirables that my future man would have to have or need. Well, if it was essentially, he had to. If it was a desirable, it was a nice to have. But that essentials list was ultimately my deal breaker list. Like, if he didn't have something on that list, he was out. And I wasn't honoring that. And therefore, I wasn't honoring myself. Now, when you don't honor yourself, you are energetically creating circumstances for yourself where you won't be honored either. So it's really about learning how to, create boundaries, stick to them, stand by them, and trust yourself to stand by those boundaries and love yourself enough and honor yourself enough to not back down on them. So, and because when we do that, we create a vibrational frequency that sends a very clear message out to the universe to say, I'm not going to tolerate that sort of thing. And here's my action to prove it. And when we take physical action, we create physical shifts in our vibration. And we could do all the meditating and mindset work in the world. But if we're not taking different actions and actually doing life differently, we cannot possibly create a different life for ourselves. So in the 6 years between my second marriage breaking up and meeting Laurie, I did a heck of a lot of inner work and self-improvement work and study and everything else about, I needed to understand where I was going wrong and why I was attracting these situations into my life. And that wasn't about self-blame. It was about trying to get an understanding, because I knew through all the work I've done since the 90s that we create our reality through our vibration. So I was like, well, what am I doing that's making me vibrate into a frequency where I end up with relationships breaking down? And when we do that and look for, okay, where did I go wrong? But most importantly, what can I do going forward? That's when things change. And, for me, it was just like, well, first you've got to get clear on what you want. So hence my essentials list. And my desirables list had quite a few things on it that thankfully Laurie has met or exceeded. I'm not going to go into it. He'll get embarrassed and he'll probably be like, oh, how could you say that to people? But we're not going to go there. But the thing is, he came along once I was vibrationally congruent with a man like that. And to get from where I was at I think it was 2010 to where I met him in 2016, I had to do a whole lot of stuff. And back then, I didn't have access to the Akashic records. I didn't have access to most of the tools I have now. So I had to do it the long, hard way. And there was a heck of a lot of trial and error. And I made some really bad decisions over that time. But that's okay. Like, each bad decision that I learned from and didn't repeat was a good thing, right? As long as I wasn't repeating the pattern over and over again. Took me a while, but I eventually got there. So when we're looking at acknowledging what went wrong, it's like, okay, so I was in this situation or in this relationship. It went really badly. Where was I as far at my level of action in particular? But there would have been thoughts and emotions going in the mix as well. But most importantly is the action side of things. So how was I doing relationships at that point, or even life in general? Because I could take an action that's not related to my relationship at all, and it can impact on my relationship in a positive or a negative way, depending on whether that action was in alignment with me or not. Okay. So when you go back and review, like, okay, well, how was I doing life at that point in my life? I look back and think, okay, well, I was too much in my masculine. I was doing too much. I was doing this. I was doing that. I was doing this. Okay, well, I won't do that anymore. I'm going to train myself to not be in that habit of treating him like I'm his mother and he's my son and can't look after himself, and picking up, after a man. And there was so much stuff that I was actually doing that was really the man's job, I guess. But it was coming from a place of insecurity on my part, and that's why I was what we call over functioning. I was doing too much for him, and subconsciously it was turning him off. And in my first marriage, it was actually causing him to get his guard up and want to, this is why we were butting heads all the time. Whereas in my second marriage, we didn't fight at all, but things went bad because he withdrew. And he probably doesn't even know to this day why he did that. And as a result of that, I withdrew because he wouldn't talk to me. And it just went like I was miserable. He was miserable. And the best thing we could have done was go our separate ways at that point in time. But that's when I started to do the whole, well, I'm the common element here. What was I doing that contributed to this so I can not do that again? And it did take a long time for me to learn how to step out of it, because I didn't have someone like current me guiding me along that process of going, well, hang on, this stuff you're doing here, you're doing it out of obligation or resentment or whatever. If you step out of that energy and start running a different program, you're going to start acting differently and therefore creating a different outcome. And that's what I do with my clients. I look at their interactions with their partner. I look at their day-to-day, like their job, their career, what they're doing around their health, like all the life areas. We sort of look at each one and go, well, where are you out of alignment in each of these life areas at the level of action? And from there, without going too crazy, we usually start with baby steps. It's like, right, okay, let's step you into a new action that's the opposite of resentment, for example, or doing something that's for you and feeling okay about it, not doing things out of guilt. And there's a whole lot of stuff there. Like, it's going to take me too long to go into it. But when you change the way you do your life, and that's all aspects of your life, your life completely changes. You literally become someone new, and therefore your life becomes something new. And to create that life that matches your vision and what you actually want for your future, you need to become the version of you that has that already. And I can tell you now that that person who has what you want isn't doing what you do every day if you don't have it yet. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's a bit of a tough pill to swallow. It's like, but I'm doing everything I can. Well, you may be doing a lot of stuff, but if it's out of alignment, you're not going to be creating the outcomes that you want. To create an abundant result, you need to take an aligned action. And that's the stuff that we do when we work together. Is I get very clear on how you are wired so that I can guide you through that process of understanding, well, how are you wired? Okay, well, what type of action would work for you in X life area? And we get together and we create an action plan for you so that you can start changing your frequency, your vibrational frequency, and therefore start creating different outcomes for yourself. I've probably waffled, but I feel a lot better about this episode than I did with the previous versions that I recorded. So I'm going to stick with this one. But, if you are dealing with a problem relationship at the moment, like you're actually in one or you want one, go onto empoweredlifeprograms.com/manifest. I think it is. Let me just double check. And it's a little free course. Like it's like, from my perspective, it's quite a basic course, but there is quite a lot of content in there. And if you are new to like law of attraction and manifesting and stuff like that, this course will actually help you to get a really good picture of, how to start attracting what you don't want instead of what you do. How to start attracting what you do want instead of what you don't want. Because without that training or knowledge, it makes it very difficult to understand how this vibrational frequency stuff works. And having that knowledge, and thankfully I'd had it started being drummed into me at the tender age of 19. And from there, like, it completely changed my life, but I was a very slow adopter. But I always knew, and it was always running in the back of my mind, this whole vibrational alignment thing. And now I'm actually able to share it with the world, which I'm really happy about. But I'm a lot more empowered, I guess, myself to teach you in a different way that works a lot quicker than the way I learned. So that's why I'm doing it. But yeah, if you get over to empoweredlifeprograms.com/manifest, that's the little free mini course about breaking unconscious patterns so that you can find true love. So you could be in a relationship or looking for one, and it will definitely help you to get that understanding if you're new to this sort of thing. So I'll leave you with that. And thanks for listening to me waffling on today, and we'll see you next time.